we have a trade to announce. The Coyotes are actually going to get a player that'll play for them this season. I'm not even kidding. So it's good to know that somebody will be wearing a Coyotes jersey on the ice this season, and that person's name is Sean Durzi. So the trade is a 2024 second round pick that the Coyotes actually got from Montreal in exchange for, are you ready for this? A second rounder that Mark Bergevin flipped from the Canadiens to the Coyotes for Christian Dvorak. That trade happened in September 2021, and the player still isn't even eligible to be drafted next year, whoever they end up being. This is a really good trade for both teams, and we'll look at both of them, but we should probably start with the Coyotes. Now, according to Coyotes reporter extraordinaire Craig Morgan, the Coyotes have been sending out messages to teams that, okay, we're ready to build a team now. Bill Armstrong, their GM, wants contracts, but he wants contracts that come with actual players, meaning he's likely going to need the affordable type. And you could do a lot worse than Sean Durzi. He's a solid cap hit, $1.7 million for one more year. Right shot defenseman, 24 years old, played on a really good LA Kings team in a really good LA Kings system on the rise. Sound defensively. Many people argue that the Kings are probably a really good goalie away from being Stanley Cup contenders perennially for the next little while. And Sean Durzi was a part of a system that's that good. So he brings that experience. Originally, he was a Leafs second round draft pick, but he was traded along with Carl Grundstrom for Jake Muzzin from the Leafs. He's actually so good that Kyle Dubas looked at other players who played at Sault Ste. Marie and said, you know what? I'm going to go with this guy. He's a non-Sioux Kyle Dubas pick. It's kind of a big deal. So if you're a Coyotes fan, not only are you getting a good player on the ice, but I think you're going to like the person a lot too. I actually had the pleasure of interviewing him on my podcast with Alan Walsh, Agent Provocateur, about a year ago. And he told the story about how he found out he was traded from the Leafs.
Yeah, so I get traded in the OHL that year. I moved to Guelph. We kind of had a older team, more experienced team. So was going through that, and I had a dinner planned with the development guys in Toronto, and they were driving out to Guelph, and it was quite a bit of a snowstorm, and I just sent them a text saying, are we still on for tonight? And they said, yeah, we're making the trip or whatever, and driving in the snow, and I'm just about to start getting ready, and my phone's buzzing again, and it was Kyle Dubas at the time, and get the call, and I'm like, is he coming? Like it's just supposed to be a casual dinner. We talk about hockey, we talk about my game, this, that, what I could work on. So I pick it up and say, hello. And he goes, hey, Sean, it's Kyle here. Just want to let you know you've been traded. And everything, like, what? It was like, it was dark. It was winter at the time, so it was dark. And I was like, okay, like, goes, yeah, you're going to LA. They're going to reach out to you. I just want to reach out to you first. I said, okay, perfect. I guess thanks for everything. Thanks for making a dream come true. That's it. It was pretty quick. It was pretty straight to the point, and it was fun. Then I get a call from someone in LA, and it was Mike Feud at the time. He was assistant GM, and he goes, hey, I want you to look out your window. And I'm like, hold on. First of all, I'm supposed to be meeting with the Leafs tonight. Is this guy outside on my driveway? So I look out the window, and I just see snow, and I'm like, yeah, it's just nothing's out there. He goes, you see that snow? He goes, you're not going to see much of that in LA. I thought it was really cool of him to do that, because it kind of calmed me down and kind of was like, okay, like that's awesome that it kind of made a joke like that, and called my family and just let them know, and then I ended up still meeting for dinner with those guys. So I got it.
Nice.
I mean, they made the drive out to Guelph, so we ended up having dinner, and yeah. But other than that, it was a new experience.
And look at that, another team, no winter. It's a beautiful thing, and I think it's a little unfair, given the Coyotes' apparent desire to build a team with real bodies, to sort of speculate on who he might be playing with next year, because let's be honest, he's the first domino. It's pretty difficult to know. But they only have spent $53 million against the cap as of today. The season starts today, and that's with Jake Voracek at $8.25 million for one more year, Brian Little at $5.29 million for one more year, and then of course Shea Weber's contract, 3 more years And that all helps them kind of reach the floor. And let's not forget, there's like 100, 200 grand of OEL dead cap space in there too. So if the Coyotes are going to build Sean Durzi's piece 1, and we have no idea who he would play with. Now, Sean Durzi, like I said, 24 years old, right-handed shot defenseman, and he's been living in the shadow of Drew Doughty, and that's not a bad thing. You know, Drew Doughty's a future Hall of Famer. He's a 2-time Stanley Cup winner. Maybe he'll get 3 with the Kings going the way they're going. So he's probably learned a lot, and I kind of did a little bit of a dive into his numbers in Los Angeles, and Durzi was always involved offensively, solid possession numbers, solid scoring chance numbers when he's on the ice. LA wasn't afraid to use him in offensive situations, but they also weren't afraid to use him in defensive situations. They're almost even in terms of offensive, neutral, and defensive zone starts. Neutral being obviously the most because that's where most faceoffs are. But Durzi seems like just a solid player. He's averaged about 19 and a half minutes on ice every game in LA. And that's probably going to go up. Maybe this is a situation where the Coyotes are taking a relatively cheap bet on a player that is definitely trying to establish himself as not only a top 4 option, but potentially a top 2 option. I can tell you from that interview with Sean, he believes that he can do it. Whether the Coyotes do or not, I mean, we still don't know. But what's going to be interesting about his fit in Arizona is who he plays with. Like I said, he's the first domino, and his success is going to be partially predicated on who he gets to pass the puck to. You know, how he gets to manage a power play if he gets the chance to do it. You know, and I think he will. He probably will be at least one of the 2 quarterbacks, if not the guy on PP1. And the one thing that is interesting about Arizona this season is obviously the arena deal was voted down. Clayton Keller is one that is pretty fascinating because we can't get a read on whether or not he actually wants out of town. As soon as the arena deal was voted down, a Twitter account that was apparently run by his dad, they later took all this back, said he'll never play in Arizona again. And his name has come up in trade rumors, but, you know, we saw with Jake Chychrun, it took a couple years for them to get the right deal that they wanted for Jacob Chychrun. So is Clayton Keller going to be there? Who else? We really, really don't know. A lot of this is going to depend on what kind of support staff Sean Durzi has. Now, if the Coyotes are serious about drafting, they have a ton of picks. They've got 7 in the first 3 rounds this year, and 11 overall. And they can use some of that capital to get some players that are good now, hence the Durzi trade. I'm crossing my fingers that this is a new era in Arizona where they're putting a young, competitive, fun team together. Kind of like what the Ottawa Senators have been the last couple of years. Maybe not quite playoffs right away, although it's the NHL, anything can happen. But something where you're like, I can get behind these guys. These are my boys. I'm excited. And Coyotes fans, you deserve it. You know, we've given you the gears for years on the podcast, but really, it's always been about the organization. The fans, Coyotes fans, what remains of Coyotes fans, have always deserved better. And frankly, are some of the most loyal in sports. I mean, you have to be, right? So maybe Sean Durzi is the start of something really fun and really good happening in Arizona, and hopefully get that arena thing figured out by they said January this year. I don't know if I believe them, but they're going to sort of figure that out in the next 6 months, they say. Now, for Kings fans, I think this one just comes down to numbers. I mean, they needed a 2nd-round pick next season. You know, they don't have a first this year, and if you're going for it, you need draft capital to make moves at the deadline. Or, you know, you can use a draft pick to actually draft someone who you can then trade at the deadline. But I think the Kings are gearing up to win now mode, and you can kind of see that with re-signing Gavrikov, almost $6 million a year for the next couple of years. They were able to somehow move out from under Cal Peterson's disaster contract. He's in Philly now, but they do have some dead cap that they had to take on as a penalty. Part of Ivan Provorov's deal is now retained in Los Angeles as a part of the Cal Peterson deal. And they have no real like LTIR candidates. Hope it stays that way. I doubt they'd have made this move if they were, you know, not up against the cap. But when you look at their prospects, they've got 2021 8th overall pick Brant Clark, who's right shot defense. Played 9 games for them, another few games in the AHL, put up great numbers in junior, and he is supposed to be absolutely spectacular. 20 years old. I mean, come on, this is a great opportunity for him. And one thing I thought you should check out is his hair. Like, this is it's a good salad right there. Good for you, Brant. Also, there's the former 4th rounder, Jordan Spence, who's turned into this diamond in the rough. It's kind of crazy. In the AHL the last couple of years, 87 points in 102 games on defense. He's a bit smaller, kind of the mobile, puck-moving young defenseman that teams are really after, that's really in vogue right now. I know Torrey Krug's name's in the news, so let's say like a young Torrey Krug. But, this is the team that also had to trade another right shot D, Brock Faber, to Minnesota for Kevin Fiala. So they've got the pieces to make the moves they need to make. And they clearly had some young right-handed defense that they want to try out and they want to see fight for an NHL job and they think are probably ready. And so Sean just ends up being the odd man out. So overall, I got to say, my instant analysis is this is not a bad move for either team, especially the Coyotes, who are hopefully at long last trying to build a team with an identity that their fans can identify with. And maybe we're going to start to see some players play in Arizona that, when you buy their jersey with the name on the back, it doesn't go out of style in like 2 years. So overall, I got to say, this is a solid move for both teams. The Coyotes need young, mobile, cheap defense. Sean Durzi is that. And Sean gets a way to prove himself in Arizona, which is awesome. And then, of course, the Kings, they need draft capital and they need space for a couple of young hotshot prospects that they have coming in, which is spectacular. Now, for the Coyotes, I think that this is sort of their chance to really build a franchise identity. Young, fun, scrappy, hard to play against, nothing to lose. What's interesting about this video this morning is we're hearing that the Los Angeles Kings could be in on Pierre-Luc Dubois. They would have to have moved Sean Durzi's money out to bring Pierre-Luc Dubois' money in, because they're obviously going to want to sign him to a long-term extension if he's coming in. Gabe Vilardi is the name that's been floated out there. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know if the deal ends up materializing, but I think it's an interesting note because you're thinking, wow, you're trading a young 24-year-old experienced right-handed shot defenseman. You better have somebody good coming in. How about a really great center for your future? I mean, Anze Kopitar is getting a bit older. You do have to kind of plan for that. We'll see what happens with the LA Kings today, but it's a win for both sides. Well done on the Coyotes. Well done on the Kings. If you're a fan of either team, you should be pumped.